This video covers web application scanning with Nessus. There are multiple ways to create a scan policy for web application scanning. Nessus has built-in templates to guide you through policy creation. Scanning for known web vulnerabilities only is the quickest test and provides a good starting point. It will identify already known vulnerabilities in web applications and will not perform fuzzing. To go further, you can scan for all web vulnerabilities with two variations. A quick scan adds a minimal amount of fuzzing during the scan to attempt to identify previously unknown vulnerabilities. A more complex scan takes longer to complete and tests the web application more thoroughly. This type of test can take a significant amount of time. These predefined options create a basic web application policy to use when creating scans. You can also customize the web application scan policy. Choose Custom and navigate to the web application settings. The maximum pages to crawl setting instructs the web crawler to stop discovering web pages when it reaches the limit. The maximum depth to crawl setting limits the number of links the web crawler follows for each start page. If you choose to follow dynamic links, you may exceed the above maximums. Generic web application tests are enabled by default when using the Web Application Tests Policy template. If your web app requires authentication, you can instruct Nessus to abort scanning if authentication fails. By default, Nessus tests the HTTP GET method. You have the option to test both GET and POST methods, but this increases your scan time. Enabling HTTP parameter pollution instructs Nessus to check for sanitization of input. Testing embedded web servers continues web app testing on hardware devices such as routers, switches, printers, and other dedicated devices that may be sensitive to scanning. Tenable recommends that you test these devices individually. To customize the testing of parameters, you may choose how thoroughly Nessus tests. This setting can have a big impact on total scan time if you choose to test all combinations. By default, Nessus stops testing a web application after it finds the first flaw. You can override this setting to attempt to identify more flaws. Nessus tests for remote file inclusion, and Tenable hosts a file for this purpose. You may adjust this URL if Nessus does not have internet access. The maximum runtime limits how long Nessus will continue testing a given site. To define authentication parameters, navigate to the Credentials section. Choose your desired authentication method and fill in the appropriate information. Note that Nessus can attempt to authenticate automatically with a provided username and password. In the HTTP login form area, you can define the login parameters for your web application. It can also be helpful to tell Nessus how it can verify that authentication was successful. You can also define additional authentication-related settings. Once you have adjusted your settings, save your policy. If Nessus identifies a vulnerability, it provides reference information, possible solutions, and more in a format similar to that of other vulnerability discoveries. Other helpful information gathered when fuzzing web apps includes load estimation, which helps indicate how long tests will take with other tuning options defined. CGI Errors notes any errors encountered by the scanner. The Web Mirror Statistics plugin is useful for ensuring Nessus found all of the web applications you intended to scan. You can find any of these plugins by filtering on the name in the Vulnerabilities filter within your scan result.